Well, to the matter of Canada's future jet fighters now, Ottawa looking at the industrial benefits that any future investment would create for this country. A key consideration as the federal government considers buying the Swedish Gripen fighter designed by Saab versus a deeper investment into the Lockheed Martin F-35. And today we heard from both the U.S. ambassador and the Swedish deputy prime minister. Take a listen to what each had to say.
The F-35 has been a phenomenal success. It's not an American plane. It's an international plane. We put together a consortium, an American-led consortium, 20 years ago. Canada was one of the first to sign on.
You'll meet some countries that sell their products by saying, and I'm not going to name any names, but we're the biggest, we're the best. And then you meet Sweden, and we say, we're smaller, but we're smarter. And I really mean that, because we're second in the world when it comes to innovation. And that also, you can also see that in our defense industry.
Well, joining us now is David Perry. He is the president of the Canadian Global Affairs Institute. Dave, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, in reviewing the Gripen proposal, the industry minister is essentially saying that it does come with greater industrial benefits at this moment in time. And she's talking about thousands of potential jobs for this country, plus an R&D center to be established in Canada. By comparison, how does that stack up with what's on the table with Lockheed Martin and the F-35?
So to answer the question directly, it's just different because the nature of the participation with the F-35 is different. But take a step back and say that not very many years ago, we ran a competition where we evaluated both of these options, the airplanes themselves, their military capability, the cost of the proposals, as well as the economic benefit proposals. So we, not very long ago, went and did a comparison side by side of these exact same alternatives. So it's a little curious that we're here now having a conversation about the one that we didn't select being better, because at the time what was articulated that the proposal from Lockheed Martin for the F-35 was the best one all around. In terms of the specifics, the nature of the agreement through which we're buying the F-35 is just different than most other commercial transactions. Canada's been a member of the Joint Strike Fighter Partnership since 1997. Part of the rules of being a partner of that is that every country was basically allotted work share proportional to the number of the anticipated buy of aircraft for the host nation as a share of the overall fleet. So at the time originally, Canada was looking at, I think it was originally back in the day, 80 aircraft. That number then changed to 65. It came back up to 88. But the basic idea is that Canadian companies are going to be eligible to bid and get work proportional to 80 or now 88 aircraft out of the overall fleet, which is anticipated to reach into several thousand aircraft. The work's not guaranteed, but what it means is that the Canadian companies, of which there's several that have won that work, are providing their part, their service, their component into every single airplane that gets made, not just the ones Canada buys, but the ones that get made for every F-35
So there's a potential
customer.
job gain for Canada when it comes to industrial policy with the F-35 still.
I'd say that there's an existing job benefit that's already been accruing and has been for years, and will keep accruing for years to come if we actually follow through and buy the plane.
Mm-hmm. Now, as you say, there was a process about 6 years ago that eventually chose the F-35, but there have been a few things that have changed, namely Donald Trump talking about annexation of this country, and that has had a lot of Canadians thinking about, what is the wisdom of giving billions of dollars into this program? And, to that, is there any concern about Canadian sovereignty and autonomy when it comes to these planes? Because, I heard what the U.S. ambassador says, that this is an international plane, but at the end of the day, when it comes to computer upgrades, when it comes to full control of critical systems, that lies with the United States. That's not shared control.
So there's a degree of control that it's difficult to get on a lot of these high-end systems. Maybe Sweden is offering to transfer literally everything for Canada to be able to upgrade, maintain, and operate an aircraft if we get it from Sweden. But we would, for one thing, need to actually have the capacity to actually use all that information and technical know-how, which is not something that we have done for generations. So there's a question about, even if you get the access and you have full sovereign control, can you actually use it meaningfully? The other thing to this is that, so notwithstanding everything that's come with the second Trump administration, I guess my question is, what fundamentally does the government think would change in the evaluation that they did 6 years ago. So again, we went through this long process. Like, this was a very Canadian competition. Some people, including myself, would say it was exhaustive. We went through all of this. We looked at all the facts. So which facts have changed? Which decision-making criteria have changed? And while, yes, we don't have the ability to control all of that through that platform or some of the other ones we're buying, I guess, do we really have an indication that we need to have more ownership over that? And are we willing to pay the money to obtain the technology and invest the human resources in being able to manage those kinds of things ourselves?
Okay, listen, quickly running out of time here, but I want to ask you, because it's not as if Canada will buy the Gripens and cancel orders for the F-35. The first batch is expected sometime next year, right? So what is the feasibility of, in terms of operations, in terms of the wisdom for this country, to perhaps have a mixed fleet where, for example, the F-35 might be deployed for NORAD operations and the Gripen for all others?
Well, so again, when we did the evaluation, like across the different operational use cases, the winning aircraft scored higher. So it was assessed at the time as being the best military solution, irrespective of the specific mission type. So if you had a second fleet, you would get some basically strategic redundancy. If you had a problem with your other airplane, you have a spare one. But with that would come all the things that come with having two of something. You have to duplicate training, spare parts inventories, your doctrine management. Some of the infrastructure might be different. And so a couple of months ago, when asked about whether or not Canada was going to potentially buy two different fleets of submarines, the Prime Minister, I think, quite clearly said, well, no, because there's a lot of efficiencies in only having one fleet and not duplicating training, spare parts, doctrine, and infrastructure. And I think that logic would still hold even if we were to only just go forward, as you said, with that smaller buy of F-35. I think you'd really have to evaluate what other resources you need to commit to operate two distinct fleets, particularly at a time when the Air Force is really strapped for personnel.
Well, certainly things to consider as we continue to watch the development of this story. Dave, thank you for this. Really appreciate the time.
Great to chat.